little thing up here where I can see people?
Do the plus sign, Tammy, at the bottom, I think.
The plus sign at the bottom. Oh, yes, I see. Oh,
Okay.
I think I can only see my big brace. I think.
Oh,
Okay. There we go.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Welcome everybody to our Zoom meeting. I will now call this meeting to order. I'm going to work to create a productive meeting space where every commission member and staff member is respected, valued, seen, and heard. I'm Robin Scribner, the Montana Library Commission Chair. I was appointed to the board a little over 2 years ago by our Governor Gianforte. I'll now ask Jenny and then the commissioners to introduce themselves.
Thanks, Robin. Hello, everyone. I'm Jenny Stapp. I'm the Montana State Librarian, and it's been my pleasure to serve in this role since 2012.
I'm Carmen Cuthbertson, Commissioner from Kalispell, Montana.
I'm Tom Burnett, Commissioner from Bozeman.
And Tammy.
Hi, I'm Tammy Hall, and I'm from Bozeman also, and was appointed by Greg in, I think, May of 20 something.
Something.
Yeah, a year and a
Okay,
half.
I'm
Peggy,
Peggy Taylor, and I am in Whitefish most of the time, otherwise in Bozeman. So I've been on since August. Well, it'll be 2 years, I think. Huh?
Okay. Elsie?
Good afternoon, State Superintendent Elsie Arnson. I am here by statute. So I've been here since my election in 16 and I'm serving since 17.
And Brian, good to see you.
Hi, I'm Brian Rossman. I was appointed by Commissioner Christian for representing the Montana University system. And I'm usually in Bozeman, but I'm connecting from West Yellowstone today.
Great. And then we have Genevieve. She is the person that keeps us in line.
Hi, Genevieve, Admin Specialist with State Library.
Great. Okay. All right. There will be no action items during this meeting. Our purpose today is to review our commission bylaws. Decisions made today will be brought forward during the October meeting for the commission to adopt. I now open the floor for discussion. We're going to discuss the commission bylaws review. Shall we start with the state librarian evaluation and what if we need to make changes for, etc. There are no bylaws as of now pertaining to the state librarian evaluation. That's why we are trying to add something to our bylaws concerning that. Does anyone have any comments?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Tom.
Some commissions use a smaller subcommittee to gather information and then to submit to the whole committee. I would suggest that to the commission, that a group of 3 of us work with Sharon to design that process and then bring information to the full commission.
I agree. And I think it should be kind of spelled out like the timetable, start the process here, who else is going to be involved. Last time we used a similar system that the state does, their talent system, and pulled in information from staff members that Jenny worked with and other agencies also. But have kind of a, let's gather information from here to here, present it to the commission, and then, you know, have the process. Do you want to present it to, get it out ahead of time? We had a hiccup last time because it was very quick, but if we presented it to the commission, full commission, and then had the executive session. So some kind of process that's spelled out, and nothing is in our bylaws. So it definitely needs to be that is one of our jobs, to do on an annual basis.
Could I ask if we have reviewed evaluation processes for other state library head commissioners or head librarians? I mean, documents of evaluation. I don't know that we need to reinvent the wheel, but
Right. I believe that Dalton did, didn't he, Peggy? Didn't Dalton do some investigative work?
We talked, I think, about what they did in the state of Montana, but Jenny, I don't remember. I don't know if he did. Maybe Sharon remembers if he contacted anyone from
Other
states about their
Hmm.
commissions.
Not to my knowledge. He did look at other agencies in the state's own talent system.
Right. Okay,
Do you know, Jenny, if all states are very similar to us, that they have a board that is in charge of the?
They're all different. About maybe 20% have boards like this and others do not.
Okay.
So they're all unique.
can I ask what we've done historically?
Historically, it's been very inconsistent, which is why I think having it in the bylaws is helpful.
Yeah.
Inconsistent and rather informal, don't you think, Jenny?
Yes. Yep,
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
has it been annually, Jenny?
I would say almost every year, but there's been maybe 2 years in the time I've served as state librarian where I haven't had an evaluation.
Okay, but it was normally informal. Right? I'm sorry, am I assuming?
I would say informal in that there wasn't any kind of systemized approach. So depending on who the chair was and the approach the chair wanted to take, it varied. So we typically would have it be in an executive session during a commission meeting involving the full commission. Those kinds of aspects of the evaluation were similar, but the approach that was taken and the process of setting goals and discussing those goals has been very inconsistent.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Tom. I didn't mean to.
do we have the materials that Dalton gathered?
I think Sharon would, and I would have, the listing there. I think could be utilized again. Don't you think, Jenny?
Sure. Yep. And I know Sharon's on in case she has any information about the materials that Dalton left with her.
Sharon, can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, I have the copies of things. I'm not sure if I have the originals. I'd have to go back and double check, but I do have all of the finished documentation. So at the very least, it could be recreated. And that particular evaluation was very much modeled on what the state has in their statewide system. The commission was not able to enter it formally into that system because of just login restrictions and those kinds of things. But it was the same verbiage and the same categories as what's in our state talent system.
Madam Chair, could we ask Sharon to forward us those documents, please?
Yeah, Sharon, we'd appreciate it if you would forward us the document. Okay, thank you. Yeah, that would give us something to take a look at.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Oh, a couple of things that we've got so far that I think maybe we could agree on is that we should have a yearly evaluation in the bylaws, should say yearly.
Yearly.
3 commissioners on a subcommittee. I think that should be the chair, the vice chair, and someone appointed by you. That we need to have this based on our goals for Jenny. I think the process has to be, it's one of the most important things we do, and I think it has to be very, very fair to the librarian. You can't be expected to accomplish things that haven't been laid out for you. And so if it's yearly, it includes 3 commissioners, the chair, the vice chair, and someone else appointed. And they bring it to the full board. I'm wondering how you feel about Jenny should be evaluated by just us and her performance, or also by the staff and us. Jenny, what's your feeling on that? I mean, do you want to know input? Last time you got input from the staff.
Yeah,
and that-
yeah,
oh,
I appreciate having a 360 evaluation. Last time it included staff. It also included a member of each of our advisory committees, as well as the subcommittee of the commission. And I thought that was a worthwhile process.
And who sent out those questionnaires?
Dalton did.
Dalton
Yes.
did.
Sharon, correct me if I'm wrong, you may have done that on Dalton's behalf.
No, I believe Dalton did that.
Okay. Wow, that's a big task. Okay. Where did he get the questionnaire? Sharon, do you have any? Oh, Carmen, yes.
Just an idea, should we create a standing committee, personnel committee or something that would be tasked with this yearly evaluation?
With the questionnaires, etc. That's a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
So then under subcommittees and work groups, we create a personnel committee and we outline, they're supposed to conduct an annual performance review of the state library director, generally in, and then whichever month might work best, to forward that then to the full commission for review, and just kind of define that committee and its purpose, and put that in our bylaws as a standing subcommittee.
Okay.
I think that makes really good sense. I think I like it being a personnel committee because things could develop. Plus, that committee could be periodically maybe used for something. I don't know if it comes up. So I think that's really good. I think what we have to look at now are the documents that are available that have already been used. So I think we can keep this fairly in the bylaws that that the commissioners will use for the evaluation input from the staff, the commissioners, and the advisory committees. Is that what you would say, those 3? But
Yes.
again, it's all based, whatever it is, it's got to be based on the goals of what we have set for Jenny and how they've been. We're a little behind the 8 ball here only because we've got our evaluation coming up in December, and I want this to be as fair and spelled out as it would make Jenny feel. But again, I think the evaluation documents, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. I bet there are really good ones out there. I apologize for eating, but I have to eat crackers or adult medicine.
So what I'm hearing is that we would like to have of course, an annual or yearly, which would you, does that even matter? Annual or yearly? Yeah. With a standing subcommittee, who will get input from staff, commissioners, and members of advisory committees. So will they come up with a questionnaire, or will that standing subcommittee get something from the state? Are you saying, or what are we saying? Where are you saying that we should get this evaluation form, or the like an inventory or whatever you would call it from?
Madam Chair, first of all, I think it's very difficult to write by committee, and I think this subcommittee could do that, because I think we have to be careful and not include the exact document we're putting together, because that might change year to year. And we, just the fact that we create a document or use it, and it can, I think one of the things for me that would be helpful, and maybe for Jenny, is if the commissioners shared, what they would want, just send it to this committee an email or something saying, what would you like evaluated? What do you, like, what's important to you? Obviously staff management. For me, it would be building relationship with the board, building relationship with the staff, building relationship with these commissioners. I think we can send in things and then the committee can put it together. But,
Okay.
what are our expectations? And a lot of that should be based on, is there a job description specifically for you, Jenny, that we should base it on? So
There
I think,
is.
yeah.
And one of the things that Sharon could help the committee with is
Yeah.
looking at those state competencies. All state employees are evaluated based on the same overall competencies, and then staff in management positions have additional leadership competencies like you're speaking to.
Mhm. The hiring of staff, management of staff, I don't know, budget overview of budget presentations. I just think we take those major things that Jenny's assigned to do, and then we just evaluate them. And it can be
Right.
very simple, again, with the numbers or whatever, and the same document can go to the staff, as can go to the advisory committee, as can go to us. But you could title them differently, because ours would be dealing with, one of the things I would want to know, I think, is an evaluation, again, of the relationship with the commission, or the communication with the commission. Those would probably, it would be pretty much the same items, but it might be
A little different wording, a little different wording.
wording for each group. I don't think it has to be lengthy. I would agree that I think these can get too wordy and too long. And
Okay.
I see that Brian has his hand raised.
Okay, I'm sorry, Brian.
Yeah, that's fine. I think some of you have just made the point that I was going to, and that is that I think the performance evaluation should be predicated primarily on Jenny's or the state librarian's position description. And I guess I have a question for Jenny: is there a template that is used for state employees for annual reviews? At Montana State University, we have templates that are used for staff. So is there anything that we should be following?
There is, and Sharon mentioned the talent system. We tried to give the commissioners access to that system last year, and state network access didn't allow for that, but we can recreate what is in that talent system in a form. Basically, there are, I don't remember off the top of my head, a number of competencies, 8 to 10, and staff are ranked according to how well they meet those competencies. And then we also have a form that allows us to document our goals and progress on those goals, and then management leadership evaluation of staff's progress on those goals. So all of that can be made available to a personnel committee.
Yeah, so that's great. So my suggestion would be, in order to be consistent with how other state employees are evaluated, that we try to adhere to that as much as possible.
If I could, Robin, this is Elsie. Very much appreciate the previous conversation. I believe, treating everyone equally is important. Leadership diverts just a little bit from that, because the leadership then is directed by a board. And I believe that is where there can be some uniqueness that's added to that performance review, to make sure that in a timely manner the goals are achieved, or in a manner that scaffolds to another one, so that everything can be implemented. Not just, I use the word timely, but probably the word efficiently is probably there. But I believe consistency can be balanced with the goals that can be directed by the board within a time frame.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, okay.
And then what I see I thought what we did last year worked very well, is that then the committee came in and shared their report. Peggy and Dalton and Robin, and they came in and shared their report, and we all had a chance then to give input. And again, I would say this is one of the most important duties of our board. So I think, yes, I think we're going in the right direction to get this put down. But the document can improve as we want, but, you know.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Carmen.
can we task the committee with finding the right forms and documents and taking over that part of the process?
Right, with the help of Sharon,
Yes.
right? I believe, yeah. Yes, I believe that would be something, that would be okay, so this, are you saying the standing committee would be the chair, the vice chair, and then someone else appointed? Is that what? Okay. Okay, yes.
And then what needs to be in the bylaws is the kind of the charge to that committee. So it would include creating the evaluation paperwork. It probably should include a timeline of when that committee needs to get what accomplished, so that is consistent, and when they report to the full commission. So I think the timeline would be good to put in there too.
Okay. So to repeat, we have in the bylaws that we'll have a specific timeline, which we know we want. Do you want to stay with January? Is there a reason it's the end of December, Jenny?
No,
No.
I think we defaulted to that last year just by when the work was actually completed.
Okay. Alrighty. Is there a reason it would be better at a different time, or it's a good time to have it? End of the year.
That is consistent with when we do evaluations for other staff.
Okay. And it goes with your contract too. It kind of.
I don't have a contract. I'm a permanent employee.
Right. Okay, so the bylaws would include a timeline, and it would be yearly, and the 3 commissioners would be appointed to a personnel committee. And then we would include evaluations by staff, commissioners, and the advisory committees. Those 3 groups would be included. And it would be based on the goals and set by general board management would be part of it, but specifically goals that have been established for Jenny in her, what did you call the document your goals are in?
The talent system.
Okay.
Is that what you're referring to?
Well, you said you did have a specific list of goals that you need to accomplish or whatever.
There's the competencies that are in the talent system. We have not worked with myself and this commission in establishing annual goals. I hope we can talk about that a little bit once we get through the bylaws discussion today.
Yes, and I think that what we're agreeing at this point is that that particular wing of it will stay just defined in general terms, but it'll be developed by the commission can help develop it, give ideas like we're doing now, but it would be developed by that committee with your help and Sharon's. And again, then it'll come back to the board. The committee will review it, and then it'll come back to the board. The committee will report to us, and then at that time, we take action on renewing. Is that what we do, Jenny? Is we take the action to renew you then, or is that not?
Again, I'm a permanent employee, so there's no action to renew, but an action to accept the report or.
Okay, and then so then that would be after review by the entire commission, we would vote to accept the evaluation.
I see Sharon has.
I was just going to encourage everybody.
Okay, go ahead.
I was gonna encourage everybody then now, between now and we can set a date, but to give input on the kinds of things that you would like to see evaluated. Or
Yes.
included.
Okay, Sharon, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I just emailed out to all of you the performance evaluation that was used last year. The content of it is consistent with what we have in our talent state eval system. It can certainly be adjusted as the commission wishes, but that was the format that was used last year. I'm still looking for the questionnaire that Dalton had used that he sent out to others. So I'm still looking for that, but I'm sure I have it somewhere. I just haven't found it yet.
Okay.
I do remember that it was, I think it was Tom's first meeting maybe, but I do remember that there was something, it had statistical analysis of some of the information, and we didn't find that very clear. I remember that.
No, that was tough.
Yeah, we couldn't follow the statistical that was set up by this group and that group. So I'd like it to be a lot more clear than that, because I do remember that.
I think, Madam Chair, I
Yes.
think it's a good starting base, and then, as you said,
Yeah.
as Sharon said, adjust and add specifics that go along with the goals. So, but it's a great starting place, I think, and it's consistent with what the state is doing, which I think is important for us to follow their guidelines too.
Right. Yeah. Right. It talks about trust, strategic focus, results driven, innovation, optimistic. Oops. I don't think it. Okay. Sorry. I went a little too fast. Effectively.
Madam,
Yes.
could I ask that Sue send me that, what you just sent out on the Gmail? I thank you
There.
to Mike that he did help me get the computer thing running, but I can't look at it at the same time I'm Zooming. So I'd like to, if she would send it to my Gmail address, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, Sharon. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I
Yeah.
can't get onto it. Thank you. That would be helpful.
Sharon, did you get that? Send it to Tammy's email.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find that address.
I can send that to you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for doing
you.
that.
Okay, so do we need a recap of that?
I guess we should ask Jenny, because she's gonna be taking the notes on this and all, what you see or heard or what.
Genevieve and I will work together to draft something, but adding a component to the bylaws that call for the commission to conduct a yearly evaluation of the state librarian, that there will be a standing personnel committee who's charged with conducting that evaluation and any other personnel matters pertaining to the state librarian. That committee will be responsible for determining the process through which the evaluation will be conducted, that's consistent with the state policies for personnel administration. There'll be a timeline in the bylaws for when that occurs, and that the final report from the personnel committee will be presented to the full commission.
Yes, sounds very good. Yep. What it was, anyone else have anything else to add or corrections or? I don't see anyone's hand up. Excuse me if I don't get everybody's hands for some reason, and they're not showing up on mine.
No hands up right now.
Okay, good. All right. So is there any further discussion about the librarian evaluation? If not, we'll go on to the agenda setting. I'll open the floor for discussion concerning that. Tammy, did you want to discuss?
I really appreciate it. I'm not sure how long I'm gonna be able to
Yeah,
Steve,
go
we
ahead.
I'm looking for my own notes now. Here they are. Did people have a chance? I apologize, I didn't get this to you sooner. I've really been pretty much comatized, I tell you, for the last week. Did people get this today? The other commissioners, and Jenny, did you get a copy of what I sent out?
I did.
Mainly, I did that in case I couldn't attend today. So I would like to talk, I think this is a really important process for us, is how we set the agenda. I think that's a really important process to make sure that the board and Jenny work together well and things flow well. And so I think if people like this idea, this is only ideas. This is not, set in whatever, but I did want to send you a copy. I would point out just in general that what I've done here is that there's really three, and again, I don't think we have to make this too complicated, but there are really three, there are three evaluations: the preliminary evaluation, and then the one that the board works on to give back after they see that, because a lot of times we don't have questions or changes or whatever till we see that evaluation. So I think it's good to call it a preliminary. And that's the first deadline, and that would be a month ahead, 4 weeks ahead. And that would be set up by Robin and Tom, and with input, of course, from Jenny and the staff. But that's the basic agenda, but it's preliminary. All right. And then if we get that a month in advance, then we move into what I would call working on the final itinerary. And at that point, as I put down here, we would be encouraged as soon as possible, because we have to give Jenny and her staff time to get things ready. But as soon as possible, after receiving that tentative agenda, the preliminary, then we contact them if we have any changes. And what I had here was that once we've received the preliminary, we're encouraged to contact Robin about any changes we'd like to see. And these changes could include, but not limited to, adding a new item or making changes to those items. And again, for example, I added the item about beginning evaluation of training we're doing for librarians. Well, that came off something that had only occurred recently, and that was what they were already supporting and doing. And that was adding an item. It could be to change an item from the way it is to an action item, or from an action back because you don't feel like we're ready for action. An example of that would be the extension of the Hoffman York. That I didn't know about until I saw it in the agenda, and then we contacted and asked that it be, at that time, we could make it either an action or a discussion item. And then, I think that the agenda would be in three parts. It would have action items, information items, or discussion items, and then reports. Those three general parts. And then, so the commission has, now they've gotten the preliminary, they've had encouraged to, as soon as possible, get that to Jenny. But I wrote a deadline in here that I think the deadline for that should be 2 weeks before. So basically, the commission gets this a month ahead. It's preliminary. They all look at it. They contact Robin, what they'd like to see added, changed, or whatever. Robin and Tom, with Jenny's help, would make the changes necessary that they saw. And again, that could be add a new item, take an item off because you don't think we're ready for it, move it from action to discussion, move it from discussion to action. And then now we have another deadline, and that is 2 weeks before we need to stop giving items, and we need to give them time to prepare. So now they have 2 weeks. And I think they really technically would only have a week, but I can't imagine some of this wouldn't have already been brewed and talked about and, whatever. And then a week before we would receive the final agenda. And that, and then I thought I put in here, if sometimes something timely comes up, there might be all of a sudden a bad example maybe, but a grant that's being offered that we can match on or something, but it's a deadline that's coming up very soon and we need to add that to the agenda. It's time sensitive. I think if anything time sensitive comes up after that final agenda has been printed a week before, then we could hold the Zoom meeting at that point to decide, do we want to add it to the agenda? Do we want to take action at that time? Whatever. I don't see that happening often, but I think we need to put something in there that would cover that. And so, and the only other thing I had is that I would try to put the reports at the end of the meeting. Lately, we've had the action items at the end. And I think the reports are really an important part of the meeting and very informational, but a lot of times, if necessary, they could be moved to a different meeting. And so I think we should try to get the reports and that kind of thing at the end of the meeting. So I think that gives us at least a few things to look at. And the first thing that I'm making kind of a structural suggestion in the bylaws is that we do have, we receive a preliminary agenda a month before. And then we have to have all of our input back to them by 2 weeks before. And then a week before we'll get the final. So that's kind of the structure that I've suggested. So we can maybe, work off that and see, but I think this is one of the most important things that we do is we set the agenda. And I feel like a lot of this has been just kind of falling on Jenny to do. And, but I think this board would like to have sort of a active in that. There you go.
Okay, is there any discussion about that? What do you think? I found it pretty to the point after reading this.
Carmen has her hand up.
I'm sorry, Carmen. There you are. Yes.
Thanks. I kind of like this. This looks good to me. My main concern is with the publishing date of the agenda to the public. What I don't ever want to have happen is that we have any kind of confusion or dispute or problem after it's been put out in public. So these deadlines don't address that. I don't have any specific concept about what that should look like, but I think that should be in there just so we don't ever get into a situation where somebody has an issue with something on the agenda or not on the agenda after it's been put out there in public. So my question was that 1 week ahead deadline for a final agenda, Tammy, were you intending that at that point it goes on the website and out to the public, or is there another deadline, with observing the 48-hour rule in there that's the agenda when it actually gets published out?
Well, I see it as something we could decide today, but I see us putting out that first agenda to the public a month ahead, but saying across a very big preliminary agenda, this will be, the final agenda will be given out on a week before. I think I agree with you. I think for clarity and transparency, we should get that out there. And then, but make it very clear, this is a preliminary agenda. Changes will be made up until a week before. And then the week before we publish this, because we have 48 hours to do it, but I'd like to give people more time than that. So I think then we would tell people, and we would publish the final agenda a week before. Jenny, is that doable?
I think that would be doable. I'd want to just double check all of the dates with Katie. Carmen, I think you had a question.
Can I ask a
No,
quick? Oh, sorry.
Sorry. I question the wisdom of putting out a preliminary agenda because I think we're going to confuse the public.
Okay.
I agree. I think it should not be published until it's finalized, because sometimes people get on it and then they won't refresh and they'll go back to the old agenda. So I
Right.
agree, it should not be publicized until And we typically try to go for a week or 10
44.
days.
Is it?
I
can
do
we-
10 days, yeah. So I try
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
10 days before I upload the meeting materials. Usually we have, 90%, sometimes 100% ready. I post the agenda and then I do a public meeting announcement that lists all the action items and the other things that commission will do, and meeting information, and link to the Aspen 10 days ahead.
Okay, so you actually put it out to the public 10 days ahead. It isn't the 48 hours previous.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's always that's the goal. Sometimes it's 8 or 9 if things, for whatever
Right.
reason, but the
Okay.
gold standard for me is 10. Yeah.
And I realized that you got them to us. I just didn't realize that you were putting it out to the public also.
Yeah, it's all kind of the same.
Okay.
same
Oh, it
to-do
goes
list.
out on our website,
Mhm.
right?
I kind of do it all at once. Yeah.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I support what Carmen just said. I think Carmen and Peggy make a really good point, because I hadn't even thought about the publishing. I hadn't even processed that at all. But now that I've heard their points, I think it's a very good idea to not publish that preliminary. What do you think, Jenny?
I agree with you, and that has never been our practice.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point.
And it
So-
also makes additional work for staff to do that.
Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm in favor of the agenda being not firmed up until closer to meeting time, as Tammy's described. I'm just a little bit confused at how if Commissioner number 4 or number 2 sends an item to the chair, the Robert's Rules of Orders that we've been studying say that agendas are the control of the full commission.
Yes.
And so it should not be the discretion of the chair or the vice chair and chair getting together and saying, yeah, we're going to put that item on the agenda. So I'm opening a can of worms, but the commission decides what the agenda is, not 1 or 2 people.
Okay, so on our bylaws, it says that it is decided, and that is why previously it has been said that, and bylaws, they trump Robert's rules. But if we're changing them, then we need to address that also. Right? Correct? Is that correct, Jenny?
That's
I
right.
think it's a general rule that one
Right.
person should not have that
Right,
much
control of it all, right? And
mix or
no.
to forward something.
I understand. Yeah, I get that. I agree. I agree with you with that. So what you would like to include in that is that if someone wants something if a commissioner wants something on the agenda, then it should be allowed. Right, Tom, correct?
Not necessarily.
Okay, so if tell me what you're saying. One more time, I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know how the mechanics, if we agree that the commission is in charge of its agenda,
Yes.
we have to have a mechanism for that to work.
I guess I would ask maybe Katie if she has some guidance for us. The only mechanism that I could think of would be to have a public meeting to set the agenda, a notice public meeting. So you get a little bit.
Yeah, you're meeting for a meeting.
Right, exactly.
I guess I would just share philosophically. I know where you're coming from, Tom. I think, again, the bylaws need to stay a little bit general, and it's a working format and it can be changed again. I think that is a little bit tough area, because on the one extreme, every board member could contact Robin, and all of a sudden we've got so many items. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. So that, we could turn into the legislature with 3,000 bills. But on the other hand, I agree with Tom. I think we have to be very careful that the whole commission is involved in this process. I guess my feeling is, because I like to keep policies not so specific that we end up with boxes and books and piles and reams of paper. So I think I would like to leave it with the process that that these commissioners get in touch during that 2-week period, hopefully soonest as possible, and ask for new items to be added or an item, you know, removed or changed from action to discussion back and forth. And see if we have the self-control to make that work. I think this is a good beginning, and we can test it out for a year. And if we start developing problems, I think that's a great place to wait and see. It may not be a problem. I think, you know, it's one of those things where I can see where we'd end up with so many rules that it would be, you know, you can add an item, but with only 5 words, and it has to be a certain day. And, you know, I mean, we could get ourselves sort of choked.
Madam Chair.
Peggy, go ahead.
I was looking at the Montana Board of Regents bylaws that we were given, and they have a section on meetings and just some general guidelines. And I do like to place an item, et cetera, a member can, with approval of the commissioner, must request that it submit to them 4 weeks prior to the meeting. But it does give a chance to agree to waive that requirement. So that's kind of nice. I also like when submitting an item or group of items, they designate whether it should be an action or discussion, information or special. I think maybe we just need a little bit more specific direction in meetings, something similar to the
That's similar to the Board of Regents then. I'm looking
or
it up.
one of them. Several of these say that the chairperson is the one who sets the agenda, but I think having input from others is what we need to include.
Right.
But we do need to give the staff the time to do this. So, you know, doing it a couple of days before the meeting is just not acceptable. I think a timeline in there is good.
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead, Tammy.
I've been on since last May, and I've had 4 different chairs. And I would say that one of the differences I've noticed, and it's just a difference of philosophy with the commission, it's not right or wrong, it's just what I've noticed is that we have moved quite a bit from the chair setting the agenda and to getting the rest of us involved. And I think that's for me and my philosophy of management. And as Tom said, because the agenda ends up being such a driving force, I think I like that model. I like that we're moving toward, and I think what it is now is for us to have restraint, you know, because I can see a situation where I would call and ask for something, and then Robin would call me back and say, Tammy, that's going to be on the agenda in February. Okay. Oh, good. Let's not worry. You know, there's 2 other board commissioners who also want it as an item. So that's, you know, that's great. Just whatever. Or our meeting's getting really, really long. Are you comfortable suggesting that item at a different time? I'm comfortable with all that kind of open.
Okay. Okay. All right. So
I think the main thing I really wanted to point out was that we need to be clear on a preliminary budget or discussion, because again, I didn't even know that I was interested in some items until they were already there on the agenda. And then I went, oh, okay, now, I think that it's real important to have this timeline for Jenny. I also think that it's real important to make sure that we tell whether we want something as an action item or a discussion item. That's important to me. And I wanted to share, if you don't mind, I talked with the Lieutenant Governor about this, the Roberts Rules training we're doing. they had a quite a, strong emphasis that you need to have an action proposed before you can discuss something. And I think that was a really hard thing to work with. I think that was the only time I've seen us really struggle to function. And that was the last 2 meetings where we were trying to do that, because we were almost making very artificial actions just so we could talk about something. And then we
Right,
spent all this time trying to change the action definition or whatever, because it didn't match up, but we had to do that. And one of the things that was made clear to me is that that is not required in boards such as ours. That is very important for, again, the legislature. They have 3,000 bills. You can't just stand up on the floor and say, I'd like to talk about this item today. That doesn't work. It's already had to be a bill proposed, gone through committee, and now when it comes up there, it is action. So you're ready for that. But just in general, it's perfectly acceptable and recommended that we have on our agenda that there's a discussion item. We can't move it to action, right, Jenny? Because that's directed by the law.
Right.
So we can't move it to action once we're in the meeting. But I think if we have a discussion section of these items and then things we've probably already discussed, and we're ready to take action. And then if we have reports, then that's nice and smooth. And it makes for, I think, cleaner operation than trying to come up with some action. But I just wanted to assure everybody that that is acceptable within Robert's rules in smaller groups than ours. It's not. So.
Okay, so basically what you're saying, that motion, that when we got all confused about the motion and then having to go back and change the motion, that you're saying that in boards that Kristen is saying in boards such as ours, that we can actually discuss and then.
Well, we couldn't make it an action unless it was, but it could be a discussion and an action. If it's an action item, when we had the meeting, the follow-up meeting, our last Zoom meeting,
right,
discontinuing our membership, that was an action meeting. So we started with an action.
right.
But it was, so that was fine because we had advertised it that way and we did that. So we might have a discussion first about something like that. And then that's pretty much what we did. We had a discussion about it and agreed to have a Zoom meeting with action.
Okay.
But poor Peggy, I felt bad for Peggy because we just done this training and, we were all like, well, we have to have an action on the floor. And you're sort of like making up an action so you can have a discussion. And that was very difficult, I think.
As parliamentarian, I will point out that training that is for boards and commissions. So the training that we all took was specifically for boards and commissions, and everyone who attended was board and commission members. It wasn't legislatures.
I know, and that was, and those are kind of the basic of that, but there's also many changes to Robert's Rules of Order to fit certain situations. But if you talk to a school board or you talk to, I'm sure Elsie would tell you at the Board of Education, they discuss things. They don't feel they have to make an action before they can have a discussion on everything on the agenda. That just is sort of unworkable.
Elsie, can you give us your input?
I sure can. So with the Board of Public Ed, they are a semi-judiciary board. In other words, I give them things and they make determinations. They are constitutional bodies. So like on a teacher license, what happens with that is it's extremely transparent with due process, which means then that if we do have a hearing or if we do an amendment to a state standard, which is a mandate to any of our 400 school districts, there is a hearing ahead of time. And that is on the meeting that it is a informational item. They meet every 6 weeks. So then the following meeting, whether it is a 6 weeks interlude, which is the normal time period, or if it's something that happens very quickly, they have a week to notify public that this is indeed going to be an action item. And it is separate on the agenda as being an action item. One of the things, Tammy, that if I could also add to this is your placement on the agenda. If you have action items, rather than having them dispersed throughout, it would be great for a quorum for the board and also for the public to notice them at the front of the agenda or at the back of the agenda, but at least put them together. In
Yes.
any manner, shape, or form that we could do that. And I would also put them, if I could, put that in the front of the agenda, because you've already had that discussion in a previous agenda with them. And that means you just have more continuity with your thinking and your thought process as the board itself acts on it. Does that help at all with what I just said about the Board of Public Ed?
I thought that was brilliant. Thank you. That was really helpful. Especially putting the action items together near the front so the public knows, because we're not going to be having action items 90% of the time without having had a discussion previously. And I also think it keeps the ability to have a quorum if things come up. That was helpful.
Yes, thanks, Elsie. Okay, so can we agree on?
Madam
Yes,
Chair?
Yeah.
Going back to the creating of the agenda, maybe we can have some kind of 4-3-2-1 as far as weeks go. You know, this is where this discussion started, was how to create the agenda. Maybe 4 weeks ahead, that preliminary agenda goes out to the commissioners just to kind of get us started thinking about what issues that we've had brewing that we think need to be addressed. And then maybe 3 weeks ahead, so that gives us 1 week to come up with proposed changes to the agenda. And then 2 weeks ahead, we have a final version. This is what it's going to be. And then 1 week ahead, put it out to the public. So we have a week in there kind of as an emergency measure. If something really, something is really controversial amongst the commission, that we have a week to deal with it. Because I'm thinking, the 10 days out to the public, that's nice, but that's not anything but just habit. Maybe we can change that to 7 days. So then we have a very simple 4-3-2-1 week outline of how we put it together. That's just the timeline. It still doesn't solve the problem of who or how many people it takes to decide what to put on or not put on, whether it's an action item or a discussion item. My local library board puts something on the agenda if it's requested by 2 board members. If just one person, wants to fill the agenda with their pet peeves, that's not going to happen. It has to be at least 2 people who say, this is important, this needs to be on the agenda. So that would be a suggestion maybe for how to propose additions to the agenda.
Good idea too. What do we think about that? Does anyone have something to say?
Just for clarity then, do we have some basic agreement amongst us that 4 weeks we get a preliminary agenda? If there's some agreement, we can move forward with that. Board members immediately begin to send in what they want. I'm just thinking of the items that we could maybe agree on. I would like further discussion on Carmen's point of 2 board members having to add an item. I'm not sure I feel about that. I think that's got some real good points. And I also think we have to be careful where board members can't add things. And then the 2 weeks give Jenny and the staff and the commission time to put in more items or whatever. But there's a week before. So it really would be just 1 week, wouldn't it? No, it would be 2
Yeah.
weeks. Yeah.
1 week that it would be put out to the public.
Yeah, a week before it's the final agenda put out to the public.
Right.
And I wouldn't want to go any closer than I wouldn't want to be any more forward out than a week. I think a week is enough. And so I was a little confused, Carmen. I think you put a 4th one in there. I wasn't sure. There's the preliminary and then 2 weeks where we work on it.
No,
So there's a
4 weeks.
week in between, sorry.
Go ahead,
No.
go ahead. You.
There's a week in between, basically 4 weeks preliminary is the deadline for the preliminary agenda. 3 weeks ahead is the deadline for any proposed changes, and we have to figure out who and how suggest changes. 2 weeks before the meeting, the final version of the agenda goes out to the commissioners. 1 week ahead of the meeting, the final version and all the documents and everything that goes with it goes out to the public. So it just seemed simple, 4, 3, 2, 1. You know, and a week to me is a good amount of time for somebody to have enough time to research or think about something, but it's not like, oh, in 6 weeks is a deadline when you have to make your comment and then you forget about it. It's, to me, a week is like a nice nice amount of time to do something.
I personally am more comfortable with having 2 weeks that the commissioners can review that evaluation. I mean, the preliminary. I like having 2 weeks and not a week. I think 2 weeks it's just a little, for me personally, it gives me more time to do research. It gives me more time to look at, it gives me more time to check with Jenny and find out that it's, you know, not something that to get information that I might need. I like having that 2 weeks. I'm a little uncomfortable getting the agenda and only having a week to review it and get my ideas in. I'm comfortable with 2 weeks. And then I'm comfortable with giving a week that the public gets it. But I'm slower than some of you, and I take time on the research and contacting people and back and forth. So,
Carmen, do I understand that the 2 in the 1, 4, 3, 2, 1 is 2 weeks when the commission gets the final agenda?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So between the commissioners getting the final agenda and everything going out to the public, there's a week in there too, just in case something comes up. And I think that idea comes from my desire to really not put anything out there and then have some
Very good.
emergency correction coming up, because it just makes the whole commission look bad if we don't present ourselves to the public with a really final and agreed upon agenda.
Jenny has her hand up.
Go ahead. Yeah, Jenny.
My only concern about the 2 week approach, and I think Carmen's suggestion is maybe a nice compromise. 2 weeks may not be enough time for us to prepare for agenda items, especially if we're trying to bring in a subject matter expert to address commission questions or have staff on vacation, that kind of thing. And also having those kinds of requested changes 3 weeks ahead, give the chair and the vice chair a week to then sift through the requests for changes to the agenda, look at what that's going to do to the other timing of agenda items on the agenda, the length of the meeting, any kinds of other impacts that the commission, the chair and the vice chair might want to take into account when finalizing that agenda.
Right, yeah, I agree that if we let it go until 2 weeks, then it would be not very much time for the staff to gather information.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
And one thing is, I don't know that. How often is there controversy about what's on the agenda, what's not on there, whether it's a discussion item? Because that's, I hopefully in a normal course of events, there would be very little. And also the preliminary agenda, obviously Jenny's aware of it, and then the staff would be aware of it if there's a report that's requested. So if we have to have in our changes 3 weeks before the meeting, in my view, 99% of the time, that would mean that any expert or any report would have 3 weeks notice.
Mhm.
Which is hopefully would be enough. And really,
Unless something changes in between that week 3 and 2, which it could possibly, but still, that would be, 2.5 weeks would be a good time to do exploratory work also. Don't you
and
think, Jenny, or no?
I do. The other point I was just gonna make is, we try to have your preliminary agenda at least drafted. Usually it's 6 to 7 weeks ahead of your meeting.
Right.
The change that Tammy's proposing is involving the vice chair in that process, and that's very doable. So if the commission would like more time to consider what is on the preliminary agenda, and still give staff enough time to prepare, then, pushing that back to, 4 to 6 weeks ahead of the meeting for the preliminary agenda. And then, 3 weeks ahead, that would give commissioners 2 to 3 weeks, time to consider the preliminary agenda and still give
Okay.
us 3 weeks to finalize.
Okay, so go from, instead of 4, 3, 2, 1, do 6, 3, 2, 1.
Sure.
Would that be all right? What do you, Carmen, is that fine? Tammy, Tom, Peggy, Brian, what are you thinking?
I'm more comfortable with 4 weeks. Yeah, I'm just a little more comfortable with 4 weeks out that we get our agenda, because then it's more timely and closer to what we'll actually be doing at the meeting. But I do know that we point out things to Jenny all along. We'd like this on the agenda. I think a lot of it, she's had guidance ahead of time. So I'm comfortable with either way that you do it. I just want to make sure I have philosophically 2 issues that are sort of bumping into each other. And one of them is, of course, I believe the commissioners have to give you input and have time to review the preliminary agenda and get that to you. I'm not sure how that works. I'm comfortable with trying it, and depending on the self-discipline that we have, that works. I
And-
also, another major philosophical issue, and that is the right of the public to know what's coming up and what we're discussing. If we make the final going out, they fight each other. If we make it so that we give less time to the commissioners to review everything and get information in before we publish the final, that has a little bit of a downside. But the positive to that is, I really do think with transparency, we need to let the public know what's on the agenda, because sometimes they want to get involved and they want to read things and they want to get research and they want to organize. And that's part of the process. They have a right to know that. So that's why I think I can see both sides.
So are
I
you
can
thinking
see both
that a week is not enough? Or you think, is that what
No,
you're thinking?
I think we need to, maybe it sounds like everybody wants to stay with a week. I think.
Previously it was 10 days, approximately. So what?
I'm comfortable trying this, but I think right now the thing we really need to correct is that all the board members are having adequate time to give their input in whatever. Okay, so
Okay.
if I could, selfishly,
Yes.
I've got to lay down. So I want to try to figure out how I'm supposed to get me off this picture. And I go to stop video. Is that what I do?
Yeah, stop video.
Okay, thank you. Otherwise I can just close it, right?
Okay, you can still listen to it.
I want to listen. I want to be part of it, but I'm not leaving you guys. My body's saying, nope, enough. So
Okay. Yeah, so push the mute button and
I'll leave that. Thank you. Okay. I didn't leave you.
okay. All right,
So,
Carmen's hand is up.
If the preliminary agenda normally comes out 6 weeks ahead, we can change it and give ourselves more time and go to 6 weeks, 4 weeks, and then 2 weeks, and then 10 days if people don't want to do the 1 week.
Mm.
4.
Yeah, then there's 2 weeks in between, 6, 4. 4 is any proposed changes need to be in. And then another 2 weeks to the final version, then we're back at 2 weeks, the final version is ready, and then 3 days later would be, or 4 days later would be 10 days ahead. It goes out to the public, we could do that too. I just think we need to agree on something and go with it and
Right.
test it.
I would agree with that. And I would like to hear what Tom and Peggy and Brian think about is the 2 weeks, having the final draft at 2 weeks or 1 week, which one do you three prefer and why? And I suppose Elsie would have really good help on this because she does this.
Okay, Tom's hand is up. We'll go ahead, Tom. Can't hear you. Sorry, you're muted still. There you
I
go.
like changing 6 weeks down to 4 weeks, because 6 weeks is only 2 weeks after you've had your meeting.
Yeah, that's better.
It seems a little a little hasty to be generating. I'm fine with a week or 10 days for getting the notice to the public. If it was 10 days, we would need to have all the decisions made about what's on the agenda done by 2 weeks. Give staff time to type it up and get it ready for publicity. So that's my comment on 6 versus 4. I prefer 4.
Okay. Alrighty. Anyone else have an opinion? Peggy, Brian?
I'm just gonna actually, I think, abstain from this. I'm so new to this body. I haven't even been through my orientation yet, and I think that I don't really have much to add to the conversation right now. I think Tom just made a really good point. I didn't realize that if it was 6 weeks, that the agenda would be coming out, the draft would be coming out 2 weeks later, and I think that's a really good observation. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Peggy?
I think this is fine, and I know Jenny's been sending out, she keeps notes on what we want for the next meeting. That's been coming out early, and then, I mean, that could come out and then have your 4 weeks and with the preliminary and move from there. So, and I think 7 or 10 days would be fine, whatever works best for the staff.
Genevieve, I'd like to hear from you.
Oh, yeah, 7 or 10, either one works for me. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Jenny?
you.
I think 7 or 10 works either way.
Okay, well, we should we say 7 to 10 days? Would that be appropriate?
Sure.
What, does everybody agree with that?
Give some flexibility in case holiday weekend, just kind
Yeah.
of gives that little,
Yep.
if we're
Sure.
gonna put things in writing, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that would be fine with me. If it's fine
Yeah.
with everyone else, the 7 to 10 days. That I agree with the 4 weeks. It is 2 weeks is really soon after the meeting. And then proposed changes by 3. And then by 2, the final. And if there is an emergency that we need to add something, perhaps before that 10 days. But usually that hasn't happened very often, or as far as I know.
I have a quick question, just kind of procedural, like, so looking at, I'll email out the agenda at 2 weeks to the commissioners. It won't go to the public yet, but will go to the commissioners. Should the meeting materials also be uploaded by 2 weeks, or are you okay with those kind of streaming in between the 2 week and the 1 week? You know what I mean? 'Cause like at 1 week, I'll put the agenda up on Aspen and upload all the meeting materials to Aspen. But so you could potentially be looking at getting the agenda at 2 weeks, but the meeting materials not being uploaded until 1 week.
1 week.
Or or it's up to you guys, or I could email you the agenda, upload meeting materials as I have them at the 2 weeks, but just not upload the agenda.
When you say upload, do you mean to the public?
Yeah, because we put all the meeting materials on Aspen, and that's how the public accesses all those meeting materials. So like traditionally right now at 10 days, I upload all the materials and then I link them in that agenda, how I link them, and then I upload the agenda. So at 2 weeks, just wondering, like, should I be expecting to send you all an agenda? Will you need meeting materials also at that point? And if so, would I post them on Aspen because they would be public at that point? Or
I
it
would
would be a lot of
be,
attachments if I tried to email them.
Yeah, that would be a lot.
and I would be hesitant to require staff to have all meeting materials prepared 2 weeks
2
ahead of
weeks.
the meetings.
I
Yeah,
agree.
so just the agenda at 2 weeks.
The only,
Right.
the only
And
That's enough for you. Yeah,
then at between 7 and 10 days, then the
start
final
uploading.
the
Yeah.
link with the linked materials.
Okay.
Is
Thank you. That
that
helps me. Yeah, that helps me. That helps me understand. Thank you.
And I just would like to say that I would like to stay with the 4 weeks that we get the preliminary and then time for input. And then make sure that, I think 1 week is long enough out from the meeting to post it. I'm
right?
more comfortable with 1 week than 2. I think 2 weeks out, again, limits the commissioner's ability to give and get input from staff, et cetera, et cetera. So
I
if we're
see.
gonna
So,
try this, I just prefer the week, but if
so
other-
you prefer 4-3-1. Skip
Yeah,
that
I
number 2.
prefer that we get the preliminary 4 weeks ahead, and then we have 2 weeks to review it and get that back to staff and give them time. And then 1 week before. So I'd say,
So,
What-
okay, so
But would I email you would I email the commission the agenda at 2 weeks? Just
Or-
the commission?
or are you, or are we saying, let me get this straight. Are we saying 4-2-1 or 4-3-1? Tammy, what are you saying?
4-3-1.
4-3-1.
I think, we're giving,
So we only have a week then to get it finalized.
that Jenny, they would have within there, if they posted on June 1st, the preliminary, and then we have, 2 weeks in there to get it back to them. That's June 15th. That's our deadline to get our part done like that. And then that gives them a whole week. And also hopefully more time because we've given them information sooner. That gives them a week there to get things kind of put together and then a week at the final. So I guess that is Carmen's wonderful philosophy. 4-3-2.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not getting, I just want, the 2 I want is the 4 weeks and the 1 week. And the in between, I think we can keep it as however it works for Jenny and the leadership.
Okay. Tom's hand is up. Tom?
Thank you. I'm just worried about getting an agenda in one email and meeting materials in another email, and that's way over my head. So if we can be sure that the meeting invitation and the agenda and the meeting materials are all in one bundle somewhere, that would be really nice.
And she would probably send,
done.
when
Yeah,
she
they're-
puts it out to the public, she would send us the finalized version that she sends to the public or post on.
Yeah, I just send you guys the link to Aspen because that is where everything is bundled, is on Aspen. So I don't ever send out materials just because they have a possibility of changing. So I just always send you the link to Aspen. That way, if change is made to the agenda before, appropriate time, or if a meeting material is added, Aspen is the final holding place of all of this, where the agenda lives and where the meeting materials always
Excellent.
live. Yeah, and that way it's like, as things change, it isn't like there's multiple versions floating out there.
Right.
Just seems to avoid
So-
that confusion.
So you are suggesting that even though we do get an email with it, that we go to Aspen and click on the agenda there.
If we're proceeding with you guys, if the commission getting the agenda at 2 weeks ahead of it going out to the public, that one I would have to email you because it obviously, if I put it on Aspen, that
Oh.
Aspen's public, right? So so over the 4-3-2 and the 2, I would email just the commissioners, an attachment with just the agenda. But I'm just saying, like, be aware that the meeting materials, you know,
Won't be
most
con-
likely won't have been all posted yet. Some could, I mean, some are ready to go, you know, pretty soon.
Right.
Just knowing that
Well,
there's a kind of a
and-
new dynamic as far as getting an emailed agenda at the 2-week mark. That wouldn't be on Aspen.
Right.
I do have one question that's kind of new. Do the other commissioners would it be helpful for them to have access through this process at some point that Tom has requested we add this agenda item? So I know that that's been requested or whatever. I don't need it to know anything that's been decided, but it would be helpful if that kind of information is shared with us. That, you know, Carmen has asked that the item in the budget be moved to action rather than discussion. I think it's helpful to know that before I see the final.
Okay,
As parliamentarian, can I ask Katie Bauman a question?
go ahead. Go right
Katie,
ahead.
are you on? Don't know if she's still on. She might have lost her.
I
Can you
see
hear
her.
me?
Oh, yes. Hi. Okay. How does quorum work by email? Does that make sense?
It does.
Is it ever an
Uh,
issue? Like, you know,
it's not, of course, it's not specifically addressed. I don't think there's a lot of risk to it.
Okay,
It's not
good.
like the greatest, but I don't see a lot of risk to that, if that
as long as
really
there's not like a
answers your
lot of
question.
discussion. Okay. No,
Yes.
yeah, I just want to make sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Katie.
So if I understand this right, disseminating information is okay, back and forth among all commissioners or a quorum of commissioners about this, that, the other thing is not okay. But just sending something out as an information item is okay.
That's right.
Okay.
And just as Jenny keeps us in touch during the legislature, with we're doing this or that or whatever, we're trying to, I think it's that same kind of thing. Just kind of keep us, you know, we're considering that Brian asked for this and to be removed, and does any, you know, just let us know that's where something's going.
That's a good idea. Okay. So text would work also.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is that all right with everyone, Ben? Or would you rather be emailed?
I'd prefer the state email address.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say email is gonna be the best, just
Okay.
for transparency, and heaven forbid someone ever tried to FOIA something and all your text messages are now gonna be turned over.
Yes. Okay. Alrighty. So government email. Oops. Okay.
Jenny, would you give us your notes of this whole issue?
It seems as if we're coalescing around the 4-3-2-1 concept, where the commission will receive a preliminary agenda 4 weeks prior to the meeting. They'll have a week to request any changes or additions to the agenda. And then between the second and the third week, the chair, the vice chair, and the state librarian will finalize the agenda and share it with the commission 2 weeks prior to the meeting. And then 1 week prior to the meeting, the agenda will be posted along with all meeting materials.
Sounds really good.
And I've also made note of the fact that we'll have action items at the beginning of the meeting, followed by discussion or information items, and then we'll conclude the meeting with any regular standing reports.
I wonder if we can have a little bit of flexibility in that. I understand, you know, if we have very, very long meetings and we get tired, that action items are where the rubber meets the road, and so to be fresh and thinking well is important. But I'm wondering if we have very few reports and they're short, I think it would be a lot easier for staff to show up and do it, because otherwise they don't know what time they will be requested to leave their desk and walk in and give a report. So maybe there can be some flexibility in that order, depending on how many reports we have or how long they need to be. I don't know. I just thought about that possibly causing a problem too with putting all the reports at the end.
That could also be handled with wording. In general, reports will be handled at the end. And there's some discretion there. Because they might have to, the report oftentimes plays a role in the discussion or the action item. And so I think that, you know, we've got to leave that somewhat flexible. So instead of saying all reports will be at the end, we could say in general, reports will be at the end unless it's prudent to move them to another time.
Well, like when we had the report by the teacher, he had to do it at a specific time because that was his free time during the school day. So if we did put something in about flexibility for certain presenters.
Mm-hmm.
Tom has his hand up.
Yes, Tom, sorry.
Yes, I appreciate all three preceding comments. Just a bit of a counterpoint to Carmen's point, which is consideration for staff, so they don't have to wait around an indeterminate amount of time before their turn. An action item is considerate to the public because they may not want to hear all the reports, but they want to tune in for the action item, and they could time their own participation better at the beginning of a meeting. So those are the two sides of that coin.
Yeah, very good point.
That's true. So I guess, from what I'm hearing then, we could add the point about flexibility for certain presenters. Okay.
Robin, I was just going to add that we always have at the head of an agenda any changes or additions to the agenda. So I think at that point in time, you could make note of, moving up a special report or, allowing for public comment on a certain matter, something like that.
Okay.
Allowing for that kind of discretion.
Right. And you can, and you'll notify me of that, I'm sure. Okay. Right. Anyone else have a comment about this? Do we agree on what has been discussed? We don't have to vote, of course, but if you want, you can say, no, I don't agree. Otherwise, we'll go on to, does that satisfy everyone with the agenda? Nod your head. Okay, great. I didn't see everybody's heads. All right, so now we'll go on to other, and I'm not sure what the other is. Jenny, oops.
Just an option in case anybody wanted to raise any other options for changes to the bylaws.
Okay. Anything else? From the sounds of it? Oh, yes, Carmen?
Under meetings in our current bylaws, 1A, it says the commission shall meet 6 times during each calendar year. And I would like to add there at least 6 times. It says later in that same paragraph, the goal is to have no more than 3 months between meetings. So the concern seems to be that we don't meet less than that. So I would like that to read, the commission shall meet at least 6 times during each calendar year.
And is there any other discussion about that? I mean, we have been meeting with our Zoom meetings. We have been meeting more than 6 times a year. And I think that I think that it's been good. We've had a lot of good discussions. So do we feel we should change that wording then? Is anyone else concerned that they don't want that stipulation put in there?
Madam Chair, I would agree that it's better to state at least 6 times. And that clarifies the somewhat ambiguous statement later.
Okay. All right, I agree too, that would be a good, something good to add in there. Okay. Any other comments or suggestions?
Carmen has her hand up.
Sorry, Carmen, go ahead.
Thank you. Where it talks about, let's see what section is that? Number 7, state librarian. I would like to add there that the state librarian present a quarterly personnel reports that reflect all hiring, resignations, and dismissal of staff at the state library. And that comes from, you know, the other bylaws that we were sent as examples. And it seems, together with the financial report, that personnel report is kind of a standard important thing. And I think that would be good for us to include as well in our bylaws.
We've also had a request at your last meeting to have a quarterly contract report. So we could include the financial personnel and contract report.
Good. Yes, that's right. We did, didn't we? Okay. So add that. So there would be 5 duties under there, or would you just attach?
I think it may be easier to read if you make them separate. You know, present a financial report, present a personnel report, present a contract report. It's just easier to read, I think, if it's individual paragraphs.
Right, I agree.
And then I was trying to interpret point number 2 as it's in there now under number 7, state librarian. Carry out policy decisions of the commission and is responsible for management of the state library programs. That second part almost sounds to me like it belongs in the employee responsibilities or something, or director's responsibilities, in a different way, but that's not important. The other thing I thought, the next sentence in there, management information requests by commission members shall be made to the state librarian. I had to think about what that means, and I think what it's trying to express is that the state librarian handles all information requests from commissioners and serves as the conduit between commissioners and staff. And I'm not sure that I interpreted that sentence correctly, but I wanted it to be more clear. And maybe Jenny, you can tell me if that's meant to preclude individual commissioners from calling individual staff members at the library and having discussions without going through the proper channel of making all such requests through you.
Carmen, I agree. I think that's what it says, but that's not been our practice. So
Okay.
I am certainly more comfortable, and I think I've said this before, with if commissioners have information requests of an individual staff person, contacting that staff person and just CCing me on a request so that I'm aware, something like that. So if it's more clear, I don't know that practice needs to be spelled out in the bylaws necessarily perhaps it would be better to just strike that language.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, if we know that Erin Fashaway handles something, we can certainly directly contact her or Genevieve or any
Right,
of them.
exactly.
so Jenny, you'd be comfortable with just removing that sentence that says management information requests by commission members shall be made to the state librarian? We could replace it with something that says you should be copied.
Sure, something like that.
Okay,
Okay. All right, is there any other discussion? About the bylaws, are we finished discussing bylaws? Any hands up anywhere? Okay, I was wondering who all will be attending Brian Rossman's orientation on September 14th. Carmen, will you?
I
Okay,
am not going to be there.
okay, Tom,
I hadn't thought I would, but I think I might now. It's going to be
okay,
here in Bozeman, isn't it?
Mhm.
yes.
Okay.
At the
Is it going in Bozeman?
public library in Bozeman, yes.
I will be.
Peggy, yeah, I was getting to you. Good. Peggy will be, and Brian, you'll be.
I'll be
And-
there, yes.
Okay, and Tammy, how about you?
I would love to invite everybody to my house, but I'm not allowed in the car for 6 weeks, so I will.
Oh, oh, okay, yeah, no, that's no problem. Okay, so there will be a quorum, Jenny, so we'll have Jenny post that it is, post that there will put out a public notice saying that we will be meeting for this orientation.
Okay,
On the
I will
other
do that.
hand, I think I have a meeting in Helena that day, so I will not be able to be there.
Oh, okay. So there won't be a quorum.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
If anybody changes their mind, could you please let us know by the 12th so that we do have time to properly notice in case we do end up with a quorum?
Okay, yep, that's reasonable request. All right, well, thanks everybody for your input today. I believe that we made progress, huge progress. Yes,
Robin, I
Yes.
just wanted to make sure before we ended, I really want to thank you for the meeting today. I think you managed it beautifully and I felt like it was a wonderful exchange of open information and I just really want to thank you for that. And I'm very excited by the progress we're all making together.
great, yes. Yes, okay,
Robin,
yes,
could I just say, we are planning on ordering in lunch for the orientation meeting. And Genevieve, I'll be in touch with you later today with the details on that. And Jenny had suggested that you could help coordinate that for us.
Sounds good. Perfect.
So I would just ask that those of you who are going to be there respond promptly to Genevieve's question as to what you want for lunch.
okay, sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. All right, so I would like to thank all of you for your hard work and all the information that you provided in the preparation that went into this meeting. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move to adjourn.
Okay,
I second.
hey, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
There you go.
Thank you,
Okay.
Thank
Robin.
you.
Yes.
Thank you,
Okay,
everyone.
bye-bye.
Bye.